When you look closely at your life and examine why you are where you are, you will come to realize that it has very little to do with talent, with luck, or with resources, and everything to do with the way your mind has been programmed over the years. From the moment you were born, you were surrounded by voices, beliefs, and traditions that you didn't choose but absorbed. You were told what was possible, what was impossible, what was acceptable, what was dangerous, what was foolish, and what was wise. Little by little, these ideas sank into your subconscious, forming a paradigm, fixed mental operating system that dictates how you think, how you feel, and how you act. This paradigm is the invisible script running in the background of your life, and until you confront it, it will continue to stop you from achieving the success you are reaching for. You may set big goals. You may dream of wealth, freedom, or achievement, but if your paradigm has been trained to expect mediocrity, to fear risk, or to doubt possibility, you will keep circling back to the same results. It is not your conscious desire that controls your life. It is the paradigm lodged deep in your subconscious mind. That's why so many people set New Year's resolutions and break them within weeks. They sincerely want change, but their old programming quietly pulls them back to familiar patterns. It is like having one foot on the accelerator and the other on the brake. You try to move forward, but the brake of conditioning keeps you stuck. You might want to build a successful business, but if your paradigm whispers that money is scarce, that you are not good enough, or that people like you never succeed, you will sabotage yourself without even realizing it. You will procrastinate. You will hesitate. You will rationalize why it's not the right time. And in the end, you will confirm what your paradigm already believed, that you can't do it. This is the greatest tragedy, because the truth is you are capable of so much more than you are currently experiencing. But capability alone is not enough. You must align your subconscious programming with the success you consciously desire. Think about it. If your paradigm was wired for abundance, for confidence, for creativity, would you hesitate? Would you delay? Would you shrink back at the first sign of challenge? Of course not. You would move forward with certainty. You would attract opportunities. You would persist through difficulties because your inner operating system would support your vision rather than fight it. Most people never stop to question their paradigm because it feels so natural, so normal. If you were raised in an environment where people work jobs they hated just to survive, you may have accepted that life is about enduring, not thriving. If you were told as a child to be realistic, whenever you dreamed of something big, that seed of limitation may still be rooted in your mind today. You might not even realize that what you call your personality or your common sense is actually just programming from people who may have been living small themselves. And so, without awareness, the cycle continues. You wake up, go through the same motions, think the same thoughts, feel the same emotions, and recreate the same results. Success requires a new paradigm, and the first step is awareness. You must begin to notice the thoughts and beliefs that flash across your mind when you consider success. When you picture yourself wealthy, do you immediately think of struggle, of sacrifice, of doubt? When you think of achieving greatness, do you hear an inner voice saying, "Who do you think you are?" That is not truth. That is programming. That is the old paradigm doing its best to keep you in a comfort zone, because the subconscious does not care about success. It only cares about safety and familiarity. Every person who has transformed their life has gone through the process of rewriting their paradigm. They had to uproot the old beliefs and replace them with new ones. They had to affirm abundance instead of scarcity, possibility instead of limitation, faith instead of fear. And it does not happen overnight. It requires constant repetition, constant focus. Because the old paradigm is deeply entrenched, it will resist change. But the good news is that repetition creates new conditioning. Just as your old paradigm was built by repeated messages of limitation, your new paradigm can be built by repeated messages of empowerment. You must understand that your mind is a garden. If you allow weeds to grow unchecked, they will choke out the flowers. Your old paradigm is like weeds. It grows automatically, it spreads quickly, and it does not serve you. To achieve success, you must become the gardener of your own mind, deliberately planting seeds of belief that align with the life you want. Every time you visualize yourself succeeding, every time you affirm your worth, every time you take action in spite of fear, you are reprogramming your paradigm. Over time, those seeds take root and the old programming loses its power. The one thing stopping you from achieving success is not the economy, not your lack of education, not your circumstances. It is the paradigm that has been silently controlling your decisions. Once you see this truth, you realize that you are not a victim of life, but the author of it. The same power that built the old paradigm can build a new one. The question is, are you willing to do the work of changing it? Are you willing to confront the invisible walls within your mind And are you willing to persist until your subconscious mind accepts the new image of who you are and what you deserve? Fear is the silent enemy that lives in the shadows of your mind. And it shows up every time you attempt to step beyond your current level of life. It disguises itself as logic, as caution, as practicality. But in reality, it is the invisible chain keeping you tied to the ground. The moment you decide to pursue a dream, the moment you decide to reach higher, fear appears and whispers 1,000 reasons why you shouldn't move forward. It tells you that you are not ready, that you will fail, that people will laugh, that you will lose everything you have worked for. And most people, without realizing it, stop right there. They hit what is called the fear barrier, a psychological wall that separates the life you know from the life you desire. On one side is comfort, predictability, and the familiar. On the other side is growth, possibility, and freedom. And the truth is most people spend their entire lives staring at that wall but never walking through it. The fear barrier is not made of steel. It is made of illusion. It is a product of conditioning, of experiences from the past, of warnings you absorbed from others who were too afraid to chase their own dreams. Think about how many times you wanted to take a step forward, speak in public, start a business, make an investment, move to a new city, write the book, pursue the relationship. And just when your heart began a race of excitement, your mind filled with doubt, that moment right there is where the majority of dreams die. Not because the person wasn't capable, not because the opportunity wasn't real, but because fear erected a wall and they accepted it as reality. Fear thrives on hesitation. The longer you dwell on it, the stronger it becomes. You start imagining worst case scenarios. You replay past failures. You picture yourself embarrassed, broke, or rejected. And the image becomes so vivid that you retreat back to safety. But here's the paradox. Safety is an illusion too. Staying in your comfort zone may feel secure, but in truth, it slowly robs you of your potential, your energy, and your life. The comfort zone becomes a cage, and fear is the lock on the door. When you study the lives of those who achieved extraordinary success, you find one common thread. They all encountered the fear barrier. And they all made the decision to walk through it. They felt the same doubts, the same anxiety, the same trembling hands, but they refused to let fear dictate their future. They discovered that beyond the fear barrier lies freedom, because once you face fear and act in spite of it, the fear loses its power. It's like stepping into cold water. The anticipation is worse than the reality. Once you are in, you realize it's not as terrifying as your mind made it out to be. What you must understand is that fear will never disappear completely. Waiting until you feel ready or until fear is gone is the greatest mistake you can make. Fear is part of growth. The goal is not to eliminate fear, but to master your response to it. The more you step through it, the more you condition your mind to recognize that fear is not a stop sign, but a signal that you are moving toward expansion. Every new level of success will bring new fears, but each time you cross that barrier, you expand your comfort zone and gain a deeper confidence in your own ability. Fear shows up in different disguises. Sometimes it appears as procrastination, where you keep telling yourself you'll start tomorrow. Sometimes it appears as perfectionism, where you wait until everything is just right before you move forward. Sometimes it appears as self-doubt, where you convince yourself you don't have enough knowledge or experience yet. But peel back the layers, and you will find the root is always the same: fear of the unknown. The human mind clings to the familiar, even if the familiar is painful, because the unknown represents risk. Yet the unknown is also where every breakthrough, every opportunity, and every transformation lies. The fear barrier is like a veil separating two worlds. On one side is ordinary living, where you repeat the same year over and over again, always longing but never leaping. On the other side is extraordinary living, where your potential unfolds, your dreams take shape, and life becomes an adventure. The veil is thin, but it feels solid until you decide to push through it. And once you do, you look back and realize the barrier was never real to begin with. It was only in your mind. The critical choice is whether you will live your life governed by fear or by faith. Both are unseen forces. Fear imagines what could go wrong. Faith imagines what could go right. Fear paralyzes. Faith energizes. Fear shrinks. Faith expands. Every time you reach a decision point, you are choosing one of these forces. Most people unconsciously choose fear because it's the path of least resistance. But if you want success, you must consciously choose faith. You must feel the fear and move forward anyway, because the wall is only as strong as your willingness to believe in it. The second you step through it, you weaken its grip forever. The one thing stopping people is not lack of knowledge, not lack of opportunity, but this invisible wall of fear that keeps them anchored to the familiar. And until you break it, until you condition yourself to walk through it again and again, you will always stop short of the life you truly want. One of the most powerful yet hidden reasons people never reach the success they dream of is the deep, often unspoken belief that they do not deserve it. They may say they want more money. They may talk about freedom. They may set goals and write down affirmations. But beneath all of that, there is a silent conflict within. On the surface, they desire abundance. But in the subconscious, there lingers an old message that says they are not worthy of it. This inner contradiction cancels out the energy they put into their dreams. And as a result, they never fully manifest the results they seek. Success is not just about skill, effort, or strategy. It is about alignment. And if you are not aligned with the belief that you truly deserve the life you want, you will unconsciously push it away every time it begins to approach. This sense of unworthiness is rarely something people consciously choose. It is something that has been programmed into them over time. Perhaps they grew up in a family where money was scarce, and the message repeated was that wealth belonged to all the people. Maybe they were told they should not aim too high, that they should be content with what they had. That success was for the lucky or the privileged. Or perhaps they experienced failure early in life and attached their identity to that failure, convincing themselves that they were not meant for greatness. Over the years, these subtle but powerful suggestions create a belief system that operates beneath awareness. You might not even realize it, but when opportunities come, when doors open, you hesitate, sabotage, or retreat, not because you lack ability, but because deep down you do not believe you deserve to walk through them. This inner conflict is why so many people live in cycles. They may experience temporary progress. They may attract a little more money, a better job, a promising relationship, but eventually they fall back to where they started. They unconsciously reset their lives to match what they feel worthy of. It is like having a thermostat inside your subconscious that keeps the temperature of your life the same. No matter how much heat of success you bring in, the thermostat of unworthiness will cool it back down. No matter how much cold of failure you move away from, the thermostat will warm it back up. Until you reset the thermostat, your outer world will always reflect your inner sense of worthiness. You can see this in people who win the lottery and lose it all within a few years, or athletes who rise to fame only to self-destruct, or entrepreneurs who build something significant and then watch it collapse. From the outside, it looks like bad luck or poor decisions, but underneath it is often an issue of self-worth. They may have created results that exceeded their inner image of what they deserve, and instead of expanding that image, they unconsciously find ways to bring their life back to what feels familiar. The outer results can never permanently exceed the inner picture. The truth is that you are worthy of every dream you hold. You were not born to live in scarcity, to struggle endlessly, to just get by. Those beliefs were taught. They were not natural. A child does not come into the world doubting their worth. A child naturally believes that they deserve love, attention, and abundance. It is only through conditioning that they learn otherwise. And if it can be learned, it can be unlearned. You must begin the process of reprogramming your self-image, of convincing yourself at the deepest level that you deserve the very best life has to offer. That process begins with awareness. Pay attention to the little thoughts that cross your mind when you imagine success. Do you picture yourself wealthy and then immediately feel guilty as if wealth would make you selfish? Do you imagine achieving a goal and then feel unworthy as if you have not worked hard enough to deserve it? Those are clues that your subconscious is resisting abundance. The next step is to challenge those thoughts. Ask yourself, where did that belief come from? Who told me I am not worthy? What evidence do I really have that success is reserved for others, but not for me? You will find that most of these beliefs crumble under the weight of scrutiny. Repetition is how new beliefs are formed. Just as your old sense of unworthiness was built by repeated messages, your new sense of worthiness must be built the same way. You must begin affirming daily that you deserve success, not because of what you do, but because of who you are. You are part of life, and life is abundant by nature. The trees do not apologize for growing tall. The rivers do not feel guilty for flowing. The sun does not question whether it deserves to shine. You, too, are meant to express abundance without apology. As you continue to feed your mind with this truth, the old beliefs lose their grip, and slowly your subconscious begins to accept a new standard. When you truly believe you deserve success, everything changes. You stop sabotaging opportunities. You stop undercharging for your work. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable. You begin to take bold actions because you no longer question whether you are worthy of the results. You begin to attract better circumstances because your energy shifts. People can sense it when you carry an aura of worthiness and they respond accordingly. The world mirrors back what you believe about yourself. If you believe you deserve little, little will come. If you believe you deserve greatness, greatness will start to flow toward you in ways you could not have imagined. There is a dangerous trap that countless people fall into, and it keeps them from ever experiencing real success. That trap is the illusion that knowing is the same as doing. You see, information has become abundant. It is everywhere. You can read thousands of books Watch endless videos, listen to seminars, podcasts, and lectures, and you can collect more knowledge in a year than previous generations could gather in a lifetime. Yet, despite this flood of information, the vast majority of people are not living lives that reflect their knowledge. They know what to do, but they do not do what they know. And that gap between knowing and doing is where dreams vanish. Where potential is wasted, and where lives are lived far below their true capacity. Think about how many people know they should exercise, eat healthy, and take care of their bodies, yet they don't. How many know they should save money, invest, and spend wisely, yet they fall into debt again and again? How many know they should take action on their ideas, start the business, make the calls, but instead they wait and hesitate? Knowledge alone has never changed a life. It is only applied knowledge that creates transformation. But most people mistake the gathering of knowledge for progress. They attend another seminar, they buy another book, they take more notes, and they feel as though they are moving forward, when in reality, nothing in their life is changing because their actions remain the same. The reason this happens is because people live primarily from their subconscious conditioning, not from their conscious knowledge. The conscious mind can absorb facts, concepts, and strategies, but the subconscious controls behavior. So while you may know at a conscious level that you need to take daily consistent action, your subconscious paradigm might still be wired with procrastination, fear, or doubt. And so you continue to delay. That is why there is such a massive gap between what people know and what they do. If knowledge alone were enough, the most well-read people would be the most successful. But success does not follow those who know the most. It follows those who act the most on what they know. You must come to understand that every time you gather knowledge without action, you reinforce the habit of passivity. You train yourself to become a collector of ideas rather than a creator of results. It gives you a false sense of accomplishment because learning feels productive. But in reality, it can be just another form of procrastination. People often hide behind preparation because preparation feels safe while action feels risky. They convince themselves they need to learn just a little bit more before they begin, that they are not ready yet, that tomorrow will be the right time. And while they wait, the years slip away. What transforms a life is not information but decision, not knowledge but execution. The moment you act, even imperfectly, you break through the barrier that holds so many back. You learn more from doing than you ever could from studying. You discover insights that books cannot teach you because life rewards action, not theory. You cannot read yourself into confidence. You cannot study yourself into courage. You cannot prepare yourself into mastery. These qualities only emerge when you step into the arena, when you take the leap, when you put yourself on the line. Consider the person who wants to start a business. They may study for years, attend entrepreneurship workshops, and write down detailed plans. But until they make their first call, sell their first product, or serve their first customer, they are no closer to success than the day they began learning. On the other hand, someone with half the knowledge, but twice the action will surpass them quickly because results are a product of doing. The same principle applies in every area of life: relationships, finances, health, personal growth. Those who act, even imperfectly, advance. Those who wait until they know enough remain stuck. The key is to bridge the gap between knowing and doing, and that requires discipline and awareness. You must catch yourself in the act of consuming without applying. Every time you learn something new, immediately ask, how will I implement this in my life right now? If you read about the power of visualization, then sit down and visualize today. If you learn about the benefits of networking, then reach out to someone immediately. If you discover a new strategy for improving your health, begin practicing it within the next 24 hours. Do not allow knowledge to pile up unused. Convert it into movement. The truth is that action itself creates clarity. You do not need to have the perfect plan before you begin. You only need the courage to start. As you take steps, the path reveals itself. As you move, you gain momentum. As you apply, you refine. Knowledge becomes powerful only when it is put into practice. Without that, it is nothing more than information sitting on a shelf in your mind. The 51 thing that stops most people from achieving success is not ignorance, but inaction. They know what to do, but they hesitate. They wait. They prepare endlessly, and they let fear disguise itself as more research. If you want to transform your life, you must train yourself to close the gap. Knowledge plus action equals results. Knowledge without action equals frustration. You do not need another book, another course, or another seminar before you begin. You need to make a decision, take a step, and let experience become your teacher. The environment you surround yourself with has more influence over your success than most people ever realize. You may think that success is strictly a matter of discipline, talent, or intelligence, but in truth, the people you spend time with, the energy you expose yourself to, and the habits reinforced around you all play a massive role in shaping your results. Human beings are impressionable. We absorb ideas, attitudes, and behaviors from the environment much like a sponge absorbs water. Without even noticing, you begin to think like the people you are around. You adopt their standards and you normalize their way of life. If you are surrounded by people who constantly complain, settle, and make excuses, you will find yourself echoing the same behavior even if you consciously want something different. This is why it is often said that your income, your habits, and even your mindset will mirror the 5 people you spend the most time with. If your circle of influence is small-minded, fearful, or negative, you are constantly battling against that current. And no matter how strong you try to be, eventually that current pulls you back. It is not because you are weak. It is because environment shapes identity. Success cannot thrive in an environment that suffocates it. You cannot plant a seed of greatness in dry soil and expect it to flourish. The soil matters, and in your life, the soil is your environment. Many people underestimate just how much their surroundings are reinforcing their limitations. They might be trying to build wealth while constantly surrounded by conversations about how hard life is and how scarce money is. They might want to pursue health and fitness while their family or friends indulge in unhealthy habits every day. They might want to dream bigger while their coworkers laugh at ambition and mock anyone who wants more out of life. Over time, this constant exposure wears down even the strongest willpower. You start to doubt yourself, not because your vision isn't real, but because the environment around you does not support it. If you study the lives of those who have achieved great success, you will often notice they made deliberate choices to change their environment. They sought out mentors who thought bigger. They joined groups that elevated their vision. They surrounded themselves with people who were already living at the level they wanted to reach. They understood that being in the right environment pulls you forward naturally, while being in the wrong one drags you back relentlessly. It is not enough to want success. You must also place yourself where success is nurtured, not mocked. Your environment is not just the people around you. It is also what you consume daily. The books you read, the podcasts you listen to, the shows you watch, the social media you scroll through. All of these are shaping your paradigm. If you are constantly feeding your mind negativity, gossip, fear, and doubt, then that becomes the mental environment in which your thoughts grow. Just as a garden left unattended grows weeds, a mind exposed to negativity without conscious filtering will grow limiting beliefs. To create success, you must take control of this environment and deliberately choose what you feed your mind with. Surround yourself with material that inspires, uplifts, and challenges you to think bigger. You must also examine your physical environment. The state of your home, your workspace, even your routines all reinforce your identity. Clutter, disorganization, and chaos send subtle messages to your subconscious about disorder and lack of control. On the other hand, an organized space, a clean environment, and empowering routines create a sense of clarity and focus. Everything around you is either reinforcing your old self or supporting the creation of your new self. One of the hardest parts of changing your environment is the realization that not everyone you have known can continue with you on your journey. Some people are attached to the version of you that you are trying to outgrow. They may resist your growth, discourage your dreams, or even resent your progress, not because they truly wish you harm, but because your pursuit of something greater forces them to reflect on their own choices. This is why so many people who want to grow feel resistance from friends, coworkers, or even family. It is not always malice. It is discomfort. But if you allow their discomfort to dictate your path, you remain trapped in the same environment and the same results. It takes courage to distance yourself from environments that no longer serve your vision. It takes courage to seek out new circles, to align with people who challenge you rather than comfort you in mediocrity. Yet this is exactly what success demands. You cannot stay in the same soil and expect a different harvest. If you want to rise, you must place yourself where rising is normal, where ambition is encouraged, and where success is celebrated rather than criticized. Every single day, you are either being influenced by your environment or influencing it. If you are not intentional, the environment wins by default. And the default for most environments is limitation, fear, and conformity. If you are serious about achieving success, you must become ruthless about your surroundings. Ask yourself, does this environment reflect the life I want to live? Do these people speak life into my vision or drain it with doubt? Does this energy push me forward or hold me back? When you begin to answer honestly, you will see why your results have been what they are. And you will also see the path to where you want to be. One of the greatest reasons people never rise to the level of success they dream about is because they refuse to let go of who they have been. They cling tightly to the identity they have built over years, not realizing that the very identity they are holding on to is the one holding them back. Success is not about adding more on top of your current self. It is about transformation, and transformation always requires the death of the old self. You cannot carry your old excuses, your old habits, your old limitations into a new life and expect anything to change. The person who achieves extraordinary results is not the same person who lived in mediocrity. There must be a rebirth, a shedding of the old, a willingness to step into the unknown and allow a new version of you to emerge. The struggle comes because people are deeply attached to their story. They replay their past over and over, wearing it like a badge of identity. They define themselves by what happened, by the failures, by the struggles, by the labels others gave them. When faced with the possibility of change, they unconsciously pull back because change threatens that identity. If I am no longer the person who struggles, who am I? If I am no longer the one who's always overlooked, what does that mean? The familiar, even if it is painful, feels safer than the unfamiliar. And so people cling to their old self, never realizing that it is a prison disguised as comfort. You can see this clearly when someone attempts to change their life but keeps returning to old habits. They start a new routine, but the old comfort of sleeping and pulls them back. They save money for a while, but the old spending habits resurface. They begin a new relationship, but the old insecurities show up again. It is not that they do not want change. It is that they are still carrying the old self into the new situation. They have not truly let go of the patterns that defined who they were. And as long as those patterns remain alive, they will recreate the same life again and again. Letting go of the old self is not easy because the old self feels familiar. It feels like home. Even when you know it has kept you stuck, you still find comfort in it because it is predictable. But predictability is the enemy of growth. Success lies in uncertainty, in risk, in stepping into territory where you have not yet proven yourself. To walk into that new territory, you must leave behind the parts of you that are built on fear, doubt, and limitation. You must be willing to shed identities that no longer serve you. Identities like, I am shy, I am broke, I am unlucky, I am not smart enough. Every time you repeat those words, you are reinforcing a version of yourself that cannot walk into success. The old self is attached not only to your habits and beliefs, but also to the people and environments that reinforce it. If you are serious about transformation, you may have to let go of certain circles, certain conversations, certain atmospheres that feed the version of you are trying to escape. This does not mean you stop loving people. It means you stop allowing them to keep you locked in an identity you no longer accept. It means recognizing that not everyone can come with you to your next level because your next level requires a higher frequency and the old self cannot vibrate at that level. Every breakthrough begins with surrender. It begins with admitting that who you have is not enough to take you where you want to go. That does not mean your old self was a mistake. It simply means that version of you has reached its limit. Just as a snake sheds its skin to grow, just as a caterpillar dissolves to become a butterfly, you too must shed the old self so that the new self can emerge. Holding on only prolongs the struggle because life will continue to present opportunities for you to grow. And until you release the old, those opportunities will slip away. When you look at those who have created massive success, you will notice they went through a radical identity shift. They stopped seeing themselves as victims and began seeing themselves as creators. They stopped believing they were limited and began believing they were capable of greatness. They shed the old story and wrote a new one. This identity shift is the cornerstone of success. Without it, you will always sabotage your progress because deep down you will still identify with the old self. You cannot outperform your self-image. If the old self-image says you are average, you will always return to average no matter how hard you try to rise. This is why letting go is not optional, it is essential. You must release the comfort of who you would embrace the possibility of who you can become. It requires courage because stepping into a new identity feels like stepping into the unknown. You may not know exactly who you will become, but that is the beauty of transformation. You are not meant to cling to certainty. You are meant to evolve. And evolution always demands that you surrender the old, that you bury the past self, that you step boldly into a future where the new self can be born. Only then do you begin to live not as a prisoner of your history, but as a creator of your destiny.